Well. Thanks.
Our meeting to order, budget flag, Supervisor Connell. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for the short delay. Do a roll call.
Mr. Conover?
Here.
Mr. Mayday?
Here.
Mr. Diamond?
Here.
Ms. Gilligan? Ms. Turner? Here. Mr. Bruno?
Here.
Mr. Driscoll?
Here.
Mr. Patchit?
Here.
Mr. Drossy? Mr. Bean?
Here.
Mr. Cressida?
Here.
Mr. Merlino?
Here.
Mr. Stroud?
Here.
Mr. Wild?
Here.
Mr. McGowan?
Here.
Mr. Strainer?
Here.
Mr. Etu?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Ms. Runyon? Here. Chairman Garrity?
Here.
Quorum is established.
Okay, if anybody would like to address the board before we go into our hearing on the comp plan, please step up to the microphone. Seeing nobody, we'll turn over to Ethan Gaddy and planning department.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman. Today, we have a brief presentation from our project consultant, Norabel Greenberger on Warren County 2040. Very proud after almost 2 years to have a draft final plan in front of our supervisors. We want to take this opportunity today to walk you through the plan and have an open discussion about the contents of it and receive any feedback and comment before we start moving towards the adoption phase of the project. So thank you all for your attention to this. It's been a long few years, taking a lot of hard work by residents, you all, staff, our project consultants. So I'm going to turn over to Norabel now. At the end of this session, we're going to have Q&A as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Supervisors. Thank you for having me here today. As Ethan mentioned, I'm Norabel Greenberger, senior planner with Labella Associates. It's been great working with the county over the past almost 2 years on Warren County 2020
John?
county's comprehensive.
Can you hear him?
Keep this brief today. Can you hear me okay? So I'll start with a brief overview and introduction, just to run through the process. I know a lot of you were at the various workshops. We had a workshop here as well in the spring. I'll then shift to discuss the overall plan, vision, goals, objectives, and highlight a couple of the priority actions in the plan. I know everyone received a copy of the plan as well in advance of this presentation. And then I want to talk about implementing the plan. So one of the goals throughout this process was not to have this be a plan that sits on the shelf. And I want to talk about some of the steps that were taken during the planning process to ensure that this leads to action. And then wrap up with some questions. So just to start with the planning process itself, you can see on the screen here that overall process that started with scoping, which almost 2 years ago at this point. We have heard from a lot of stakeholders in this process, over 1,000, whether that was through a survey that we had last winter that got over 900 responses, 3 public workshops that were held, 1 last year, 2 in December and 1 in last winter. We also were here at the board workshop in the spring and are here again to talk about that draft final plan. A lot of engagement with the different departments to get their buy-in and the recommendations in the plan, and lots of stakeholder and focus group conversations that all really led to where we are today. So what's in the plan? You can see on the screen here a screenshot of the table of contents from the plan. From the beginning, the goal of this planning process was to create something that was both outward focused, outward oriented, also inward serving. The outward side is really the front end of the plan. These chapters, the who we are, what we do, our natural environment, our built environment, our economy, our arts and institutions. Those really highlight current conditions in the county, walk through who lives here, what does the government do, what does our economy look like, and identifies those key issues and opportunities, a lot of which I presented on when I was here in the spring. Then the last chapter on vision here in the document goes through the overall vision that I'll walk through today, the objectives and the priority actions. And those last 3 appendices that you see shown on the screen here, that's really the inward focus component of the plan. These are great resource materials that we hope can help serve the Board of Supervisors and departments moving forward, and include a overview of Warren County operations. That could be a great resource for new staff coming on board, new supervisors coming on board. And then the appendix 2 and 3, this is where it really gets into implementation. I'll spend some time talking about those, especially appendix 3, which is really that to-do list for departments developed with the department heads during the process. So to walk through the vision, goals, objectives, and some of the actions, just want to start by talking about how they're all connected. So you see on the screen here, general definitions of what is a vision statement, goals, objectives, priority actions. As it shows here, vision statement is that guiding principle. So here's where we want to be as a county in 15, 20 years. Goals are the outcomes in order to achieve that vision. Objectives are more measurable steps to meet that goal. And then the priority actions are those key next steps and initiatives that the county can be undertaken to meet that objective. So all priority actions speak to objectives, which speak to goals, which speak to that overall vision that was informed through the community engagement. I have the vision on the screen here. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but just want to highlight that word, the phrase quality of life. That's something that came up a lot during this process. We heard from the public that they're generally very happy with the quality of life in Warren County today. And so with that, one of the goals is how do we maintain quality of life for residents moving forward? We identified 7 goals to meet that overall vision, and I'll walk through those with you now. I do just want to note, and you'll see this on the screen here. So for each of these slides on the goals, I have the goal listed on the top. The objectives that are those measurable steps to meet the goal are listed on the right. And you might recognize some of the images that are on these slides from when I was here last spring discussing some of the issues and opportunities. That's intentional. It really is to show that through line of these goals being developed to address key issues or to advance key opportunities that we talked about when we met last. So just in terms of the first goal, it is to attract and retain younger residents while accommodating an aging population, a topic that everyone's very familiar with in Warren County. We're an aging county, and we're aging at a rate that's much faster than a lot of the state and the rest of the country and lots of the rest of rural America. This is both about attracting younger residents and families to Warren County to fill jobs. But it's also acknowledging that we do have an aging population, and we want to ensure that they're able to maintain a high quality of life moving forward, and making sure that they have the infrastructure and support that they need. The next goal, again, a real high priority that has been a lot of conversations at the county level, municipal level, housing. You can see on the chart on the right, the real priority and concern amongst residents. So we identified a goal to improve housing access and quality. So this is about increasing the number of units that are available, diversity of the housing units available, and really making sure that housing is attainable for current and future residents of Warren County. Our third goal is to support thriving communities, hamlets, and downtowns. What we've heard throughout this process is Warren County has the best of both worlds. Not only do we have an incredible natural environment, but we have charming downtowns, hamlets, and they're really an opportunity to build on with additional placemaking and downtown beautification. And that really can support and attract more residents, more housing in these places that can support housing development. The fourth goal is to strengthen and support existing and emerging economic centers. Here, it's tourism, that's an area where the county does play a role, but also working with the different county collaborators and different entities that exist, whether that's the EDC, Workforce Development Board, to ensure that we are creating sustainable economy here. Maintain and enhance environmental quality. As I mentioned, that is really key to quality of life. You can see on the chart on the right that environmental quality is the highest contributing factor to quality of life among survey respondents. So this is about not only adapting to climate change and mitigating development impacts, but also kind of similar to the last working with many entities, organizations here in Warren County and supporting their initiatives. The sixth goal is to develop and maintain a long-term plan for county infrastructure and assets. This is about your understanding of the county's property and assets and making sure that they're being put to the highest and best use. And we're planning for the future. The last goal is to improve government communication and transparency. There's been a lot of great initiatives in recent years to improve communication and transparency, whether that's, for example, the online budget book. And we want to see those efforts. A lot of great conversations throughout this process. There's opportunities to continue those conversations, continue to build that sense of community and belonging amongst all residents. So to support those goals and objectives, the plan identifies several dozen priority actions. I don't want that to seem too overwhelming, because I wanted to highlight a lot of those are actually things that are more attainable or are items that are just a continuation of the great work that the county is already doing today. So just to highlight some of those that are examples of continuation of efforts that the county is currently doing. One real huge change that happened during the planning process was CDTA's acquisition or the merger with Greater Glens Falls Transit. And so because of that, I know there's been a lot of communication and coordination to ensure that transit access in the county is maintained and improved with this new entity. And so we have a priority action to establish regular communication with the CDTA to coordinate local transit access challenges and opportunities. What we heard during our conversations with various department heads, the CDTA and transit needs impact a lot of different departments. So we want to make sure that all those appropriate entities are at the table in conversations about potential expansions, changes of routes, et cetera. Just some other examples of actions that are in the plan that are really about continuing some of the great work that the county is doing today. You can see on the screen here, one, provide opportunities for centralized services for municipalities and districts where appropriate. Another example, IT, I know for the county has offered support services for local municipalities. We hope that these efforts can continue, especially as a lot of municipalities are facing issues with staffing. You can see again, let's continue at the front end of all of these different priority actions, continuing to support local law enforcement, fire, and EMS, continuing to support mental and public health. Again, these are big items that came up in terms of the survey, the importance of public safety amongst constituents here. Continue to engage in regional efforts to improve internet coverage, work with the EPC, the regional planning board, et cetera. And continue to leverage funding and to support efforts to remove employment barriers. Some of the other actions are building on recent initiatives or some of the funding that the county has secured. Having a screen here, a table that I believe Ethan Gatti Planning had shared with the Economic Growth and Development Committee that highlights just some of the grant awards that the county has received and how they align with some of the specific goals and actions in the comprehensive plan. What's been great is that, we're not waiting until the end of this process to start taking action. The county planning has already been able to secure this critical funding that's going to enable the county to advance actions without the need for additional resources. An example, thriving hamlets, that funding very closely related with the goal about supporting the county's hamlets, cities, and downtowns. The organic composting pilot program, again, that's another priority action that's identified in the plan. So there's now the funding to implement that pilot program. There are other new initiatives that were developed. So these are going to be new actions. They all were developed with extensive department input. At the start of this process, we had our project team consultant, CGR, do department interviews with each department head that went into the report that's actually Appendix A of the plan. That helped to identify what are those issues, opportunities that they see in moving forward in the county. We then met with them again over the summer to dive into potential priority actions and reviewed those with them 2 other times as they were being drafted and being finalized to ensure that we had clear buy-in. Just one example of those, again, since housing is a very high priority item that came up a lot during the process. Again, we have a goal to improve housing access and quality. One of the objectives is to encourage new housing construction and renovation to meet current and future needs. So an example priority action that would be an initiative would be leveraging county-owned and foreclosed land to increase the housing supply. This is something that we've talked about with real property, with DPW, with planning. And they're starting to have conversations about, you know, what are those existing county properties? What are the opportunities? Are there any that could potentially have a highest and best use that involves housing? So what now? As I mentioned, from the start of this process, ensuring that this is a plan that leads to action was a big priority. And a large piece of that was developing these department-specific action plans. This is Appendix 3 of the document, and it's really, again, that more inward-facing toolkit for implementing the plan. You can see on the screen here one example screenshot of a page from that section. This example from Office for the Aging. We have this for each department of the county. So for each department, it identifies the specific actions with which they would be involved in implementing them, their specific role. Sometimes it is an action that would require collaboration across multiple departments, and then any other community partners that might be involved in that action as well. So this is essentially their to-do list for the next 15 years as we're looking to implement more. As I mentioned, a lot of the actions are ones that will require interdepartmental coordination. And so we talked a lot with the Warren County Planning, our working group, the county administrator, about how that could potentially take check-in points at the different department head meetings that are organized by the county administrator. And then how are we evaluating success? It's not just about evaluating, checking a box that an action has been completed, but also that it's achieving its goal and its objective. So county planning is developing metrics to evaluate success of the projects once they're implemented. This will all go into annual progress reports that county planning will prepare that both track progress on completing the actions, but also evaluate those metrics I noted. And the hope would then be that that would be presented at routine public meetings. Again, furthering that goal of increased government communication and transparency, building on a lot of the outreach that happened during the Warren County 2040 planning process. Get there though, the first item is going to be for the County Board of Supervisors to adopt the plan. And you can see on the screen here, the process that needs to take place for that to happen. This is really critical. You know, up to this point, we have the buy-in from the public through the extensive community engagement that we had during the process. We've been able to get the buy-in of department heads through the coordination with them to develop the specific actions. And having that Board of Supervisors support is really that last step needed to show there is that full support for this plan. And that's critical in the grant application to implement some of the actions. And with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Norbert?
This is really good.
Any of the, nobody? Mr. Wild?
Mr. Chairman, this is more along the lines of implementation. I think it's Appendix 2. It's like a spreadsheet of all the different goals and priority actions. First question is, if something is priority action 1, does that mean that's what we're working on first?
Good question. No, there is no order or ranking. They're just numbered based on a list to keep track.
So how do we get to priority action 1?
Have to prioritize.
Exactly. Yes.
That's going to be, again, I think where the departments are going to have to work. There's certain items that are, so we identified with each of the priority actions, if it's a funding item, if it's a communication item, some of those funding ones probably not going to be able to move forward until the county is able to secure funding to implement that. Where there's the more low-hanging fruit items that are involved in technical assistance to municipalities, as an example, or communication, those would probably be the low-hanging fruit. We did also, for this, the goal was not to have a laundry list of every action that the county could take to address these goals and objectives. So hopefully the list is not too long to fully implemented within the time frame. I didn't fully answer that, but yes, they're not prioritized on the priority.
So just to follow up, is it up to us at the planning department, the county administrator? How do we make sure this doesn't end up on the shelf?
I'd say it's probably a combination of strategy and opportunity. So if the county is able to secure funding, something else might move to the top of the list. Otherwise, it's going to be what's doable within the constraints of capacity funding.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. Congratulations to the advisory committee and all the individuals who are part of the planning. I'd like to read from the bottom of page 14. I think it's I read the entire 200 pages, but I really was struck and felt a lot by this. It says nuanced approaches should be considered to meet local context and demographics. Feedback from residents and stakeholders emphasize avoiding a one-size-fits-all strategy, as needs vary significantly between rural, urban, and tourism-driven areas. Similarly, the needs of different demographics, such as residents looking to retire in Warren County versus those looking to start their careers in the county, must be considered. By considering these distinctions, the county can create equitable and effective policies that serve its diverse communities. What that says to me is that certainly each of us are responsible for our specific communities, but I think we've got to, as supervisors, remember that we work for Team Warren, and what is good in other communities other than Glens Falls is going to be indirectly good for Glens Falls. Most people who travel up into the North Country are passing through Glens Falls and Queensbury, the downtown counties. I represent Glens Falls Hospital and a number of large businesses in the Glens Falls area. Employees from there come from probably each municipality in Warren County. I think it's important that that we recognize that when we make decisions on projects and on expenditures, that we're looking out for what's going to be good for the entire county. Certainly, it's inherent that we're going to be looking out for our own communities, but I think again, what's good for one is good for all 12. Thanks.
Anybody else? Supervisor Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I haven't read through all of this. I'm just wondering a couple things. What, is there an estimate of costs associated with each of these goals? And if there is, where does the funding come from for implementation?
Not about process for that. And so that would be part of that next step for implementation, to start to figure out how to make this happen. I know, as an example, with some of the items we talked about related to county infrastructure and assets, we heard, capacity is going to be an issue in order to implement that. So potentially would need some outside of the county assistance to support some of the initiatives. And that next time, figuring out what did that cost, is putting out RFP, figuring out where that funding is coming from.
So that's the next phase, if you will. Thank you.
Anybody else with a question? I guess my answer to Supervisor Wild's question, it'll be up to us. Keep it moving, and it'll be up to us to keep working with the planning department to make sure we hit our next milestone to have. I think you got a public hearing coming up, and then we'll have to keep the project moving along and try to come to fruition on it. But there's a lot to read there, and I'll admit I haven't read too much of it, but I was going to ask Ben on page 207, what did it say at the bottom? I'm just kidding. Anybody else have anything? But it's a good document. It's a good start. We've done it on the town level. I think many of the towns in here have done them or have started them, and you just try to keep following along. Thank you, Narrowbell, and thank LaBella for shepherding us. And Ethan, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
No, just, thank you again for participation, and my door is always open. Any questions, comments, clarifications that you need, more than happy to sit down and talk to you about it. Make sure everyone's comfortable with the context of the plan before we move forward.
Sarah, anything to add?
I just wanted to know, having been here
Why
probably.
don't you step up so they can hear you?
Been in the planning department, back in the days when we were initiating the first wilderness heritage corridor, that this is a very similar process to what we went through, back then, where we did an extensive planning process involving all of the communities in the western part of the county, and that process enabled the planning department over the course of the following decade to receive millions of dollars in funding. So going through this planning process now, it puts us in line to kind of reboot that process again. And we can see with the success that we've already had this year, we had a historic amount of grant funding that our department has received. $2 million grant funding, all tied into the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. So this plan, adopting it, puts us in a great position to kind of refill our coffers and be able to obtain substantial, we hope, substantial grant funding going forward.
All right, thank you. Any last comments before we move on to the rest of the meeting? Well, again, thank you for coming and thank you for all the hard work, and we'll keep this going. So next item is reading of resolutions. So we're gonna wing this. I want everybody to bear with us, except for the first one.
So there's two floor resolutions in writing before you, and there's two more that I'm working on right now. So you need a motion to bring. floor resolution.
Okay, the motion to bring floor resolution number 1 to the floor. Motion by Supervisor Etu. Do we have a second? Supervisor Mayday. Any discussion? All those in favor, bring floor resolution number 1 to the floor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
And floor resolution for 2.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Amanda, could you move the mic closer to you?
Sorry.
please.
Thank you.
Yes, floor resolution number 2.
Motion to bring floor resolution number 2 by Supervisor Runyon, second by Supervisor Mayday. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, floor resolution number 3 is going to be waiving the rules regarding the occupancy tax matter that was at the previous meeting.
Motion,
Go ahead.
motion to bring floor resolution number 3. Supervisor Runyon, second by Supervisor Molino. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have 3.
Okay, and floor resolution number 4 is going to be authorizing agreement with the town of Johnsburg for municipal award of occupancy tax funding.
Motion to bring floor resolution number 4 to Supervisor Runyon, second by Supervisor Wild. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
If you want to do discussion on resolutions, why?
Yes, any discussion on the floor resolutions? We have 4.
What are the numbers?
1, 2, 3, 4, or?
I'll give you just a second.
Charity's in rare form today.
Just a second.
Sure.
We got to sign up numbers.
Yeah. You're right. So floor resolution number 1 is now going to be number 33.
Okay.
Floor resolution number 2 will be 34. Floor resolution number 3 will be 35, and floor resolution number 4 will be 36.
Okay. Okay, any discussion on floor resolution number 1, which is appointing,
Nope, 1 is waiving the rules.
waiving the rules, excuse me. Floor resolution 33 or,
Yeah, number 34 is appointing Harold Hubbard.
Okay.
as Republican.
floor resolution number 34, appointing Harold Hubbard as a Republican Commissioner Board of Elections. Oh,
Speak for a moment, is it?
you want to discuss them?
Yeah. Thank you.
You're a little late there, Billy.
I don't want to apologize.
Okay.
My Deputy Hubbard was on a phone call with our new voter registration system, trying to get some issues straightened out. I wanted to wait until he was here. But first and foremost, I want to thank everybody, Mr. Chairman of the board, for the last 8 years that I've been the commissioner here at the Board of Elections. I figure 44 years of public service is about time to hang the hat up for a little while, starting originally with Queensbury PD in 1981. I got a great run there and here. When I sat in the Board of Supervisors, for 8 years, I thought I knew it all. When I changed my hat and went in to become an employee for the county to run the Board of Supervisors, I got a real stern lesson. Every supervisor here should be very proud of every department heads that you have here in Warren County. I've had the opportunity to watch and work hand in hand with almost every one of them. No one department in this county can do the job that we need to do on our own. We need each other. We need the departments, the supervisors that gave us the ability to purchase the equipment that we now have, that brought us into this century. It's now a young person's job. It's not the grunt that can push the machine around anywhere they want to push to. It's time for the computers, and it's something that I personally will tell you I'm not real savvy on. I know enough about computers to get myself in trouble. I wanted everyone to meet Harry Hubbard. This is my deputy here. Harry Hubbard's been with me for 2 years now, has jumped in with both feet, is absolutely fantastic. This department, the Board of Elections, we're not Albany, we're not New York City, we work together. Our front office is told in the beginning that you treat every voter that walks in the door, you don't care what their registration type is, you treat them with respect and you give them public service. If someone wants to come in and talk politics, that's what we have an office for. We go in the office, we close the door, and we talk about the politics. I've never heard any complaint about the reception that anyone has ever had or the help that they've needed from our office, and we're very proud of that. I wanted everyone to meet Harry. I wanted to say thank you to all of you for giving me the opportunity to serve in this position and for how supportive you are to the Board of Elections and to this county. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Bill. You. Is there any other discussion on resolution 34? And then we'll go to resolution 36, the occupancy tax. Anybody have any questions about the occupancy tax resolution, floor resolution? Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you. Do we have anything written out yet? I know it was just a quick meeting.
The clerk is working on the verbiage.
Well, I mean, quick after the meeting.
Supervisor E2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we doing a roll call for two very different topics?
We do them for both of them.
Thank you.
It's not a problem. Supervisor Bruno.
So regarding the occupancy tax, what's the amount, term, what's a little information? A little more than. What is it about?
I'll just try to quickly explain it. Town of Johnsburg is seeking funding to move their proposed sewer project ahead. There came up 2.5 million short. They're asking for a 10-year, I believe, or so many year commitment. 10-year commitment from occupancy tax, potential 10-year commitment for occupancy tax to allow them to get the sewer project bids let.
Take a 5-minute recess. She can write the resolution.
Okay. Why don't we do anybody else? We'll do a 5-minute recess and then we'll get it written out. Okay, so 5 minutes. Fine. Put you on the clock.
Yeah, that way, yeah.
That's 5 minutes.
Thank you.
5-minute recess.
They need it. They're gonna read it.
One of those. That's what we get paid for, right? Boys?
Right.
No rush. I know what it says.